Every single business out there is just sitting on a mountain of data. We're talking sales figures, customer feedback, you name it. It can be overwhelming. So the big question is, how do you turn all that noise into a clear signal you can actually use to make smart decisions? Well, that's what we're going to dive into. We're going to look at a few simple but really powerful tools that do exactly that. And that really is the big question, isn't it? Raw data by itself is just a spreadsheet full of numbers. It doesn't tell you what to stock up on, which employees are knocking it out of the park, or where the hidden risks are. To get those answers, you need to know how to make that data talk. And that, my friends, is where descriptive statistics come into play. So here's our game plan for this quick explainer. We'll start with the absolute basics of just making sense of data. Then we're going to find the center of your numbers, and after that, we'll see why it's so important to measure the spread. We'll see how those two ideas are a team, and then we'll wrap it all up by connecting it to the real-world, data-driven decisions you have to make. All right, so first up, we've got to tackle that giant, messy spreadsheet of raw numbers. The goal here is to transform it from something that gives you a headache into something you can actually understand and, use. So, what are descriptive statistics? Honestly, the best way to think about them is like a highlight reel for your data. Instead of sifting through thousands of individual sales or data points, these tools give you a quick snapshot, a few key numbers that tell you the main story. It's always the first step in any kind of business analysis. Okay, so when you're staring at a big set of data, the first thing you probably want to know is, what's a typical value here, right? We need to find the data's center of gravity, that one number that can represent a normal day at the office. And the first and most famous tool for this is the mean, which of course we all know as the average. You just add everything up, divide by how many there are. Super simple. But it's how you use it that makes it so powerful. Just look at this retail store example. Instead of having to rattle off 5 different numbers for the week, the manager can just say, hey, on average, we're making 14,000 pesos a day. Suddenly, that one number is this incredible tool for budgeting, for forecasting, and for setting goals for next week. Okay, next up we have the median. It's pretty straightforward. You just line up all your numbers from smallest to largest, and the median is the one that's sitting right in the middle. It's the true middle ground. And it has this little superpower that the mean just doesn't have, especially when the numbers get a little weird. And this example shows that superpower perfectly. Check out these salaries. If we calculated the mean, that 80,000 peso executive salary would drag the average way, way up. But the median? It doesn't care. It just points to the middle number, 22,000 pesos. It tells you what a truly typical employee earns, completely ignoring that one extreme value. So here's the bottom line, the rule of thumb you need to remember. The mean gets pulled around by extreme values, what we call outliers. The median just ignores them. So if you're looking at data that might have some wild numbers, like salaries or house prices, the median is often going to give you a much more realistic picture of what's actually typical. And our last measure of the center is the mode. This one's the easiest of the bunch. It just asks a simple question. Which number shows up most often? It's literally the most popular value in the dataset. And the business application for this? Oh, it's crystal clear. If you're running a shoe store and you see that size 9 is your mode, you don't need some complex algorithm to tell you what to do. You just need to order more size 9s. The mode is fantastic for things like inventory planning and figuring out what's really in demand. Okay, so finding a center is great, but it's really only half the story. Now we need to know how spread out everything is. Are all your data points huddled up tight around the center, or are they scattered all over the map? Think of it like a weather forecast for your data. Is it stable and predictable, or is it totally volatile? So the main tool we use for this is called standard deviation. All it does is measure on average how far each data point is from the mean. So a low standard deviation? That means your numbers are really consistent. A high one? That means they're unpredictable and all over the place. And this right here, this is the key takeaway for any manager.
Low standard deviation means you've got consistency and predictability, which in business terms means low risk. High standard deviation means you've got volatility and unpredictability, which means higher risk. It's the direct, simple measure of your business's stability. But what happens when you want to compare the risk of two totally different things? I mean, apples and oranges, right? Maybe two products with completely different sales figures. That is where this cool tool called the coefficient of variation, or CV, comes in. It turns risk into a simple percentage, letting you make a perfect apples-to-apples comparison. Okay, check out this table. At first glance, you see both products have the exact same standard deviation of 10 pesos. So they're equally risky, right? Nope, wrong. Because product B's average sales are much lower, that 10 peso variation is actually a much bigger deal for it. The CV shows us the truth. Product B is relatively twice as volatile, twice as risky as product A. Now that is a powerful insight. All right, so now it's time to put our two big ideas together, finding the center and measuring the spread. These aren't separate things. They're a team. One tells you what is happening, and the other tells you how much you can really trust that information. See, a manager needs both parts of this story to make a good call. Knowing your average sale is 100 pesos is nice, but knowing that your sales can swing wildly from day to day, that is absolutely critical for planning and for managing your risk. You need both to get the full picture. Okay, let's bring this all home. We've looked at the tools, we get the concepts, but how does this stuff actually help you make smarter business decisions every single day? Well, whether you're using the mean to see how your branches are performing, the median to set fair salary ranges, the mode to keep the right products in stock, or the standard deviation to figure out the risk of a new investment, these simple numbers are the foundation. They help you summarize, evaluate, assess, and plan way more effectively. So in the end, that's what this is all about. Descriptive statistics. They're like the Rosetta Stone for your data. They give you the grammar, the vocabulary, to finally understand the language it's speaking. Your numbers are telling a story about performance, about risk, about opportunity. The only real question left is, are you ready to listen?